Everyone is online. Okay, I'm going to be starting off the class today. Welcome. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Caro Santana. I'm with the compliance department. I'm the one that approves your files, make sure that everything is on compliance, and also approve your CDA to get paid on the table at the closing. So for today's class, we're going to be talking about how to submit your files in .loop and Broker Sumo that you can get your file approved. Okay, so we're going to start off with all the documents that we need to upload to our loop to submit, depending on the transaction that you're working on if you're working with a resale, with a buyer or seller, or if you're working in a new construction, rental properties, the tenant, the landlord. So go ahead and okay, I'm going to be starting off with all the documents. This is one of the guides. This guide was created by one of our coaches, Camila Riva. She created this last year. It's also on my agent account. If you need a copy of the guide, also you can email us at compliance@larosalakenona.com. So we're going to start off when we're representing a buyer, when you're buyer's agents on a resale transaction. So this is the documentation that we need. We need that as is contract executed, fully executed. If there's two buyers, with the two buyers' signatures and initials, and with the seller as well. So we're also going to need the HOA disclosure executed. That's if the community has an HOA. If the community doesn't have an HOA, you don't need the HOA disclosure. If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me and ask me. The other document that we need is the seller disclosure. If for any reason the seller didn't leave the property, doesn't know anything about the property, you can use the seller non-occupancy. But we need to have some documentation that has either the seller disclosure or the non-occupancy. We're also going to need the escrow receipt confirmation from the title company, not the receipt from the client, because I have seen when they submit the files that sometimes they put the receipt. We need a letter from the title company stating with their letterhead, stating that they received that money from the buyer. We're also going to need the broker. Welcome.
Hello. Sorry.
Hello. No worries. Welcome. So the next document that we're going to need is the broker synopsis, the MLS printout. There's an instructions on our .loop that, yes, Andreina. Sí. Yeah.
Si uno le está representando al comprador, le va a comprar un celular, en ese caso, la propiedad no está listada.
Oh yeah, I totally. She's asking. Okay, Andreina, she's asking about if it's a for sale by owner. If we don't have an MLS broker synopsis. In that case, since we are, it's a FISBO, for sale by owner, we need an exemption form stating that there's no MLS broker synopsis due that the seller is for sale by owner. So, and you have to add your signature on the exemption form, and that's all that we need if we don't have an MLS, if it wasn't added in the MLS. So that's the other documentation that we need, the exemption form. So the other document that we need is the wire fraud prevention notice. In this case, you're representing the buyer. So it's going to be the buyer who's going to be signing. We don't need both. It's the client that you're representing. Also with the La Rosa disclosure that says the $395 transaction fee and all of that, the buyer is going to have to sign for it because it's the one that you're representing, unless you're representing the seller. Do you have any questions regarding the documents that needs to be submitted? Okay, so we're going to go to the next page. Okay, On this page, we're going to be talking about the documents that we might need. So for example, if we have a property built on 1978 or before, we're going to need the lead-based paint document. So it's very important that you submit that document if the property is from 1978 or before 1978. Yeah.
I think
Luis is allowing, okay, so sorry. Oops. Okay. So we talked about the seller non-occupancy addendum before, which if we don't have a seller disclosure, if the seller doesn't leave the property, is an investor, doesn't know anything about the property, we're gonna add the seller non-occupancy signed by both parties, buyer and seller. So also if the buyer has the property under an LLC, a company, it's very important that you know that the person that needs to be signed is an authorized manager, not the company name. I've seen those before and I returned the files because of that, because we need to know who is representing the company, who's authorized. So it's very important that you know that you have to also send the articles of incorporation. If it's a Florida corporation, you can find that in Sunvest or ask your client, because sometimes they have it. So you have to add also that document on the loop. So if the property is a condominium, the file must have the condominium rider instead of the HOA. That replaces the HOA in a condo. So if the transaction is a FHA or a VA, we're supposed to have the FHA addendum, FHA VA addendum executed by seller, buyer, and by the brokers, by each broker. Also, if the seller is out of the country, we're gonna need the FERPA addendum also added in the transaction. Okay, is there any questions?
That is excellent. You guys put that together.
Yes, and that guide, like I told you before, that guide was created for Camila Riva created that guide, and it's on my agent account. You can access my agent account and you can get a copy of it, or you just can email me and I can more than happy to send it to you. So we're gonna go to the next page. This is other addendums that we might need. The addendum to contract, if you're gonna change something on the contract, the price reduction, if we're gonna have, I don't know the name, because sometimes the client tells you, okay, Maria Rios, but it has another last name. The title company needs to have the legal name as it appears on the ID. So it's very important that when you are doing the contract, to know that, but sometimes we miss that. So this is the addendum to contract to make changes on the contract, and it has to be executed by both parties. We also have the extension to contract. Just in case your closing was today and they have to ask for an extension, it's very important for you to submit that to our compliance department. We need to know that there was an extension to the contract, and we need to change the date on the system and broker sumo and in .loop, because we do it, for the 1099s to have everything, the close date correctly. Also, the CDD addendum. This is if the community has a CDD. So we need to have it. Also the contribution letter, if you're contributing to the buyer or to the seller X amount of money, the letter needs to be submitted. And you have to disclose it on the CDA also, that you're contributing to the buyer a certain amount of money, and it can be deducted from your commission. Also, the other document that we need is the appraisal contingency, if, in case we need it, and if you add it, also execute it. Okay. So on the next one is when we're representing a seller, the listing agent, and a residential sale. Basically are the same documents that we use for the buyer, but we're adding the exclusive right of listing agreement. So that's the only document that we're gonna need that we don't use for the buyer, we use for the seller. So it has to be executed by the seller and by the agent. So make sure that every page is executed. And all of the other documents that I spoke to you before, that they're the same as for the buyer. Okay, so when we're selling new construction, okay, new construction, we don't need all those documents that we need on a resale. We're gonna need the executed contract from the builder. This contract needs to be signed by an authorized manager of the builder, not the salesperson. I mean, if it's authorized, yes, but if not, it needs to be from someone authorized, manager from the builder. Obviously the client, also we're gonna need the information like the office license correctly, which is this one. The office mailing address needs to be correct. Our address, because I have seen like contracts with the old address. And what happens if we receive that check in the other office is gonna get lost. And for tax purposes, we do it as well. So you gotta make sure in your broker commission agreement to have the correct information that they're gonna pay you a certain amount of money, that based on what, price, if it's the base price, the total purchase price, also if the license, your license information correctly, the address of the office correctly. Also, we're gonna need the wire fraud prevention notice signed by your client, by the buyer, and the La Rosa disclosure for the buyer. Okay, so if by any reason you're contributing to that buyer, so you must have a contribution letter, what we were talking about before. So those are the only documents that we need on a new construction. Just what it says here is make sure to verify the commission agreement. Some builders will pay bonus. That's one of the other things. For sometimes they'll pay you 2,000. It depends. Whatever they're gonna pay you, make sure to put it on your CDA. So that way we know you're getting a bonus. Okay. Is there any questions? Okay. Feel free.
How would they know if the representative from the new construction is an authorized signer? Or just ask them directly?
Yeah, we need to make sure with them. Yeah, because sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. And I have seen a lot of people send me like the contract from the builder without their signature, because sometimes they get a copy and they don't realize it's executed. So it's very important when we look at that contract. I know it's a very long contract because most of them, they have 50 pages, 100 pages, because I have seen it. I review it every time and it's like, but you need to make sure that it's executed. You need to make sure that you're gonna get paid. That's one of the other things, that you're gonna get a commission of it because you're working for that commission. So
yeah, we're on.
it's very, very important. That's why we gotta pay attention to all these details, how much we're gonna pay and all of that. So that way we're clear when we close this deal, okay?
So,
Yes, Antonio.
question.
Yes,
Going back.
going back, yes.
Representing the seller, is there any changes in the addendum? I just received an email
Okay,
that they want to add their mother in the title.
then you put it on the addendum to contract. Seller and buyer agrees to add this person and the full name of the person, and it has to be executed. So any changes that you're gonna be making on the contract, always use an addendum to contract, because you have to protect yourself. You have to protect your license.
And get third party.
Yeah, a third party, yeah, with the name of, and the legal name correctly, because when you're gonna do the closing, the first thing that they're gonna do, they're gonna ask you, the title company, is where is your ID? They're gonna see if it matches the contract. So it's very important, to have that, corrected. Okay. So The transaction on a rental property, if we're representing a tenant. So we don't need that many documents to submit to our compliance department, just the broker synopsis, the MLS broker synopsis, the referral agreement signed by both brokers. The referral agreement needs to be signed by the brokers, not the agents. So on the first part of the referral agreement, you're gonna add your name, like for example, Norma from La Rosa Realty Lake Nona, then refers this client to Esther. Norquis will have to sign the bottom page, not the agent, because it's an agreement from brokerage to brokerage, okay? So that's the only what we need. If by any reasons, you don't get, because I have seen them before, like they don't sign your referral agreement, you can get an exemption for or any documentation that proves that you represented the tenant on the transaction.
Aquí hay una casa.
So, any questions? Yes.
Yes, with a referral agreement. So as soon as I receive that, or make the referral agreement, send it via that loop.
That's correct. Okay, yeah, that's correct, Nancy. Via that loop. Okay.
You are going to receive it.
Yes. Okay, yes. When Nancy is asking the referral agreement, once she get it signed by the other broker, you need to submit it to our compliance department so Norquis can sign her part and we can approve your file. Okay? Submit it to compliance. When you're submitting documents, in order for Norquis to sign it, you have to submit it to our compliance department because we need to verify if the form is correctly filled out and for her to sign.
So it's via email.
No, it's not via email. It's when you're submitting, like when you're submitting a file to .loop. Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, it's like the contribution letter. For example, you're doing this transaction, you don't want to submit anything else. You want to just, oh, I need Norquis to sign a contribution letter because the lender needs a copy of it. So you submit that letter to our compliance department, we verify the letter, and Norquis signed her part. Okay, is there any other questions? No? Okay, so.
Antonio have more questions.
Not yet, I'm writing it down. Thank you, Lamar.
We have a great class. Okay, so rental, where we're representing the landlord. Okay, so in this one, we're gonna need the exclusive right of lease agreement. We're gonna need that. We're gonna need the lease agreement executed. And we're also gonna need the MLS broker synopsis. That's only the only three documents that we need when we're representing the landlord. Okay, so this one. So when we can, on that loop, this is the beauty about that loop, that we can create different files. Not every document needs to be submitted to our compliance department. Sometimes they submit inspection reports. Yes,
One
Norma.
second before you move to the, when you have a listing, you represent the landlord, but the tenant comes and you represent the tenants also. Who prepared the contract?
Well, the contract, if you want to, get it prepared by a lawyer or there's contract provided.
To use the contract to list in the MLS, for simplicity. So they say, no, that's not good. You need to go to the attorney.
To the attorney, yes, to do the contract. Yes, most people do that. And, sometimes, yeah, it's better because, it protects your license.
It's a website, they just charge $45.
Okay.
They do the whole contract and everything.
Okay.
So I didn't know that.
Okay, yeah, that Norma was saying regarding when she's representing the landlord and she needs to do a contract. She always uses a lawyer to do the contract, so it can protect your her license. So that's what she was asking. So you have any questions regarding the tenants and landlord?
No, I read it that last year, I didn't know,
Okay, perfect,
because I
yes.
don't usually do rent.
Just, yeah, making sure that, and making sure that you're gonna get paid also, because that's why the exclusive lease agreement, that you're gonna get paid first month rent or whatever you agree with the landlord, okay? So, creating different files on that loop. We can create different files on that loop. Not all the documents need to be submitted to our compliance department. I have seen the inspection reports. Our compliance department doesn't need the inspection report, but it's very important that you have it because this is your client's information. So you can create another file that you don't have to submit to our compliance department and add those supporting documents. You can even rename it. Within the loop, yes, within the loop, yes. Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, create a different folder in the same loop. Yes,
Well,
Patricia.
my question is, if you have those documents, you don't need to have, but you just don't submit them to you. Because
No,
they're not gonna be submitted.
yeah, not every document needs to be submitted to our compliance department. So for example, inspection report, if they send you the IDs, Social Security, sometimes they send it to us. So I don't need to see all of that. Like, for example, in a tenant pay stubs and all of that, we don't need that information. So since it's an important information that you have to have for your client, just add another file to the same loop, put in all those documents. You can rename it, whatever you want to rename it, supporting documents or other documents, but you don't need to submit that to our compliance department. So I don't know if you know how to create another folder. If you want me, I can show you.
Yes,
Well,
please.
that's a good one. You can create a folder.
Yes, you can create a folder. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go to that loop. Let me go ahead and I'm gonna go to our dot loop. Hold on. Oh my God, let me see. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna go to our dot loop. I'm gonna go like to a sample loop and I'm gonna show you. Okay, so this is our loop, okay? So let's say, for example, right here it says miscellaneous, offer, new folder. How you add a folder to the loop. So you're gonna go right here to, hold on just a moment. Okay. Add a folder. Right here, you're adding the new folder. Right here on the three dots, you can share it, you can rename it. For example, we want to rename it supporting documents. So we're just going to rename it supporting documents. So okay. So in this supporting documents that you have, okay, I want to add the inspection report. So you're going to browse, if you're going to go ahead and browse, yeah, you're going to go ahead and click on browse. And in your computer, if it's safe on your computer, check on your computer and upload that PDF into your file, okay? Also, if you want to add a template from our templates in that loop, you can go ahead and go to click on templates. And I usually use the link non-master documents because it has every single document, but depending who you're representing, let's say, for example, I just want to add the La Rosa disclosure for seller. So I just click on this, I copy it, and there you go. I have my disclosure for that file. So you can add your templates, you can add your supporting documents, everything. So this is the beauty about that loop. It has so many tools, but sometimes, it's hard, because there's so many things. So you have any questions regarding how to create a file?
Are you also gonna, vacant land? You have a contract.
Vacant land? Yeah, on vacant land, yeah. Patricia is asking on vacant land. Yeah, on vacant land, we're supposed to have the vacant land contract, the disclosure, the wire fraud, the La Rosa, the wire fraud, La Rosa disclosure, the escrow money deposit. It's very important that we always have an EMD, an escrow money deposit from the title company. So it's almost the same documentations that you're gonna use with the other transactions, but it's a vacant land. You're gonna use a different contract in which we have a file of vacant land documents.
I also have a question on that.
Yes.
I thought about something that coming up.
Mhm.
Vacant land, you will get paid, you can get paid like 500 or 600.
Yeah.
And on the price of the land. What if the charge for the road fund versus that?
Well, yeah, I'm going to be talking about that later on. So what Patricia is asking, how much, I mean, if we get paid under $2,000, because sometimes on vacant lands, we don't get paid, you know, sometimes $500, let's say $1,500. If it's less than $2,000, it's going to be a 5% of your gross commission plus $85. This $85 is for errors and omissions, and for there's a La Rosa fee for that. So you need to add all of those, and that's going to be your transaction fee.
So that's under 2,000.
That's under $2,000. That's correct.
Anything above, the same.
Anything like anything,
Well, your commission is above that.
yeah, it's above that. That's going to be, yeah.
The regular fee.
No, yeah, it's above that. Yeah, it's going to be the $395. Okay. So if your commission is more than $2,000, remember, transaction fee is going to be $395. And if it's a dual transaction, which I'm going to be talking about that too, you're representing buyer and seller. That's a dual transaction. It's going to be $395 for the seller, $395 for the buyer. So a total of $790. Okay. So, okay, we're gonna.
Could you repeat? Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, Joanne.
Could you repeat the under 2,000 commission for me? For the vacant land?
Yeah, when it's a commission under $2,000, it's gonna be a 5% of the gross commission. We're gonna take out the 5% plus $85. Those $85 is gonna be for errors and omissions and La Rosa fee. So we're gonna add those two together, and that's gonna be your transaction fee.
So the agent will pay that?
Well, I mean, the client can pay that. You can tell that your client, when you give them the disclosure, hey, you know, there's a transaction fee for La Rosa. You explain all the disclosure and everything, and let them know there's a transaction fee of, you know, this amount of money. And the client can pay it, because, you know, the vacant lands, they don't, you know, they don't pay that much. And, you know, you can charge it to the client. But it's up to
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Joanne. So it's up to you guys if you want to charge your client or if you want to pay it. Okay, you have any questions? Okay, so question about that, Lou, like creating the file, okay. So let me go ahead and go to the, okay. Yes, the presentation, I can send it to you. Just go ahead and email me, compliance@larosalakenona.com. If you want a copy of the slideshow, I can provide you with a copy of it.
Is compliance?
Compliance@larosalakenona.com. Okay, so. Come on, Antonio. Okay. So when we're submitting a file for review, make sure that you pick the correct file, because sometimes there's a few files, and for some reason, when they submit the file, they think they submitted, but they didn't. Because when you go to submit, let me go ahead and go to, let me show you to .loop. Go ahead and let's go to .loop again. Okay, for example, I'm gonna be submitting like the supporting documents, let's say. I'm gonna submit it to our compliance department. When I go and click on submit for review, it's gonna ask me all that information, which, well, let me go ahead.
Yeah, this is a pain in the butt.
You have to, yes, the lender, I know. Well, after that, because I mean, I'm not gonna be adding all of that. It's gonna be next. Then after that, it's gonna show you all the folders that you have on your loop. Make sure that you select the correct folder to send to our compliance department. Because if not, it's not submitted.
Carol,
Yes.
Carlos, Pedro, how you doing?
Good. How about yourself, Pedro?
Good. Can you close that
Mira,
out?
Pedro, está aquí.
Sí.
Sí.
I'm sorry?
Can you close it out? Close that out.
Yes.
Close it. Okay, so for all the agents out there, it's very important that before you submit this file, can everybody hear me?
Ven para acá, hablar aquí.
I can't. For some reason, I can't.
Come here.
So you're gonna have to come in front of the camera.
So no. So it's very important that before you submit the file, hello, Pedro, hey, okay. So it is very important that before you submit the file, okay, before you submit the file, it is your responsibility as an agent, not Carol's responsibility. It's your responsibility, it's your file, that you go to view details, okay? And you complete everything that is required to include people, agents, buyers, sellers, the lender. If it's a cash deal, then just put NA, NA, okay? But you gotta put the lender and you gotta put the title company information. If you do these things, you will not have that little box pop up when you submit the file. But you have to do this
From the
here.
beginning.
The beginning.
Yes,
From the beginning before submit the file.
you have to do in the beginning.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. Sorry, Michael. Come on. All right, good.
Thank you so much, Pedro.
Pedro, you can.
Stay with us.
Okay, they told me that there's some questions on the chat. Let me go ahead and go to the chat so that way I can
Pero en el broker sumo, cuando estoy haciendo el broker sumo,
for some reason it's not coming.
el cash deal, no, tienes que poner, escoger cualquier banco, escoge cualquier nombre, porque no te, porque no
It's
hay
not letting me see the.
¿entiendes? Hasta para un rifera, ¿qué es? Un rifera, yo qué sé, como algo, no importa. También te lo veo, pero por pago. Esa parte yo no entiendo por qué.
No. No, it's not.
Sí.
Te dije que
Yo no me hago.
no tiene nada de tomar, ni café, ni
Ahora
nada.
mismo, porque yo no puedo. Porque salen arrugas, se la mete la
Dejo de compartir la pantalla.
Cállate, Antonio. No te preocupes, yo
No, no, yo vine aquí a pasa con el cantazo, ¿no? Así no se puede.
Okay, yeah, okay, perfect, yeah. So there's some questions, but for some reason I cannot go to the chat. At the end of the class, I'm gonna be responding those questions. So we're gonna go. So required documents. Okay, I want to speak about this because it has happened so many times. You know that we have the MLS broker synopsis instructions and that we have the escrow money deposit instructions. Those instructions, they guide you on what you need to do to upload and go ahead and either you can archive it or you can merge a document. So that way, when you're gonna submit a file, it's not gonna let you submit it. If you have the instruction, it's gonna say required. Have you seen it that it says required?
Right.
So you need to follow the instructions and upload your MLS broker synopsis, go ahead and merge it with the document, replace it or archive it, the instruction. How do you merge a document? Okay.
¿Tú te crees, niña? Aquí estamos aquí de cero.
No worries, I can show you,
Y después
yes.
otra pregunta que nunca lo he podido figure out, por eso uso for simplicity.
Okay, no, yeah, but we have everything. That's the beauty about that loop.
Y cuando yo mando
Okay, hold on.
todo para firmar, vienen a firmar, pero yo no veo la firma de ellos, de la
Okay, hold
persona
on.
ahí. Siempre me pasa lo mismo. Sí, pero cuando chequeo el email, firma uno, pero no se ve la firma del otro, no está como que sync. I don't know, siempre tengo problemas con eso. Pero yo tengo for simplicity y yo añado los files ahí. Don't worry.
Now, let me add, I'm gonna add it. It's gonna show up in your loop. When you create a loop, you know that it comes up the MLS broker synopsis instructions. So, but I'm gonna add it right now. You don't need to do this, but I'm gonna add it so to show you what the instruction says and how to do that process. So let me go to the templates.
Yo lo he visto, pero no sé qué, pero merge por
Right here, MLS broker synopsis. Okay. So here on the MLS broker synopsis, we're gonna be opening. This is a required document. This is for you not to forget that you need to upload your MLS. So the first, you gotta obtain the MLS broker synopsis from the MLS. Print it out as a PDF. The second thing you're gonna do, you're gonna click on add documents like I showed you before. From your computer, you're gonna go ahead and upload it to the loop. Once you upload it to the loop, the third step is gonna be merge the MLS. For example,
okay.
for example, you know, okay, for example, okay, this is my MLS broker synopsis right here, and I'm gonna merge it with this. I'm gonna replace it. So that way, let's say yes. So that way, when you submit your file, it lets you submit the file because it doesn't say that it's a required document anymore. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Okay, so this is what we do for the instructions for the MLS broker synopsis. And there's also one for the escrow money deposit, you know, for you to remember to upload it, then merge it, and now you have it on file, okay? So let me go ahead and go to the presentation again. Okay, on dual transaction, I was talking earlier, when we're representing the buyer and the seller, you know that it's gonna be 2 transaction fee of $3.95 for each one of them. So, case. So anyways, also when we have a release and cancellation, like after I approve your file for some reason, your transaction gets canceled. A release and cancellation needs to be submitted to our compliance department. You need to let us know that that deal is not going through. So we have to terminate that file. We have to cancel that transaction also on broker Sumo, because that can cause some confusion to our accounting department, to Melanie. And when they're doing the 1099s, okay, so this transaction, did it close? Did it ever close? So I have to call the title company, checking why we didn't receive the check. You have to submit the release and cancellation. You have to let us know. Once the file is approved, we're assuming that you close that file, and we never receive that $3.95. And the $3.95 is the agent's responsibility that we receive that money. Okay. And it happens.
So that is, if it was submitted and then canceled?
Yeah, if it
was submitted to.
Yeah, if it was submitted, if it was submitted. Yeah. If it was submitted to our compliance department. So yeah, if it was submitted to our compliance department, it was approved, that loop was approved, your file, the CDA was approved. Yeah. Okay, the deal fell through. So you have to submit the release and cancellation. Have to let us know, because we need to terminate that file, cancel it on broker sumo, making sure that that deal, okay, I'm not gonna be following up on that, why that check didn't came in. I don't have, I have to call the title company sometimes, to check, okay, why we didn't get paid. Oh, it got canceled. I was like, why the agent didn't send the release and cancellation? So it's your responsibility as an agent to submit the release and cancellation. That can affect your license. So we're trying here to protect your licenses.
So I would think that the title company would require that in order to release the escrow.
Yeah, in order to release the escrow. And so, yeah, they do receive it.
But they don't.
But sometimes, like the title company received the release and cancellation, but they don't let us know that transaction was canceled. And we're looking for that transaction fee check. Okay, why? Okay, and then we call the title company. That's how we know that the file got canceled, not by the agent. So it's the agent's responsibility to know that they need to submit the release and cancellation so we can go ahead and terminate that file. Okay?
We have a big business account.
Yes, to follow up.
To follow up.
So another document that I want to speak about is the extension to contract. Okay? So once your file is approved and everything is approved, sometimes we get an extension to the contract. So it's very important for you to submit that extension to the contract because we need to change the dates on the system that the transaction is going to close. We need to let our accounting department, are for the 1099s. Because we have seen that they have, you have to make sure also that your closing date, if it changes, let us know because we need to change that. It's very important. We need to have that, for your 1099s and everything. So referral agreements. I spoke earlier about the referral agreements that it needs to be signed by the broker, not the agent. The agent's information goes on the top, but the broker needs to sign for the referral agreement because that's an agreement from brokerage to brokerage. So you must know that all files have to be submitted prior 72 hours of closing. I try to approve the file as soon as I can.
You always do.
I'm trying to be as fast as I can. But sometimes I get bombarded with so many emails, and it's not just sitting and approving a file, just approve. No, I have to review everything. I have to protect your licenses. So it's very important for you to know if you have a closing tomorrow, or let's say next week, try to submit that file 3 days before the closing. So that way you can get approved. And if there's anything missing on that file that I'm requesting you can go ahead and submit it to our compliance department. Okay. So
I have a question.
yes, Joanne.
What if I didn't receive the ALTA yet? Can I submit the file before that?
Okay, the ALTA settlement, usually that's the title company that sends it to you. So you can call the title company and request it. We don't request the ALTA settlement, that's for your records. And if you want to upload it to the loop, you can do that as well. But you have to contact the title company for them to send it to you with a check, or if you're at the closing table, just ask them for a copy of it and they'll give it to you.
So you don't need that for me to upload the file?
ALTA settlement, no.
Oh, okay.
It's a very important document that you want to have in your file, but you can put it on a different file. Like I told you before, the supporting documents, you can put it with the buyer's documents. You can add it there. So you have it on the future. Okay, I did this closing this date. This is the sales price and all of that. But our compliance department doesn't need the ALTA settlement. Okay, is there any questions,
Actually,
Patricia?
when you do loops and you're making an offer and it just didn't go through, those loops still stay there all the time. You can.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we cannot erase anything from that loop. So, so what Patricia is asking if a deal falls through and that loop, can we erase it? No, unfortunately, we cannot erase anything on that loop. What we can do is archive those files because everything is saved. Everything that you pull up, like you upload to the dot loop or you create, it stays there.
Because I have and it has happened to me, I do some rentals, like do listings.
Okay.
That rental can repeat in a year or 2 years.
Yeah, if it can repeat, I mean, either or however you feel comfortable on doing it. If it's the same tenants, for example, because she's asking about the rentals when you're representing the landlord, I mean the tenant, the landlord, I'm sorry, the landlord. And to create another loop, I mean, if you have the same tenant, I mean, you can add other files on the same loop. So that way you don't have to create.
But if you're gonna re-rent to a different tenant.
Oh, if it's a different tenant, I suggest that you do a new loop. So that, yeah, so that way you can get, because they're different tenants. So I will prefer for you to do a new loop. So that way it's different tenants. That way you don't get confused, Go to the property, okay, this is the tenants, it's different tenants, and you can put even the year that you rented that property. I mean, I'm just giving you suggestions,
But in a case, let's say I don't want to, and if I do like the file, instead I do a file and I put that past tenant save, and I just do a new tenant in that same group.
You can do that as well. I mean, what Patricia is saying that, if she can use the same loop over again and add a different file, you can do that. You have to make sure to rename it. Right. So that way you don't get confused. We don't get confused here. Okay, what is this documents, and try to submit the correct documentation. Because sometimes, like you submit and everything goes. And I get confused. Okay, who is the tenant? Is this one or is it? And I have to call the agent to make sure. So you have to make sure to rename your files, however you want to rename them, and make sure you're submitting the correct file. Okay. So, any other questions? Okay, so sync. Okay. So once you create your dot loop and you submitted everything is supposed to sync on Broker Sumo. You don't need to add the transaction. But you have to make sure like all dot loops transactions are supposed to sync with Broker Sumo, and they need to have the correct information. For example, your name has to be exactly the way it appears in dot loop in Broker Sumo. So in both systems, we need to have, the same name, and it needs to have the close date, the sales price, the commission, everything for it to sync to Broker Sumo. Once it's synced to Broker Sumo, then you create your disbursement. You don't have to add it, because some people, they're doing it manually, and unfortunately, what we're getting in accounting department, we're getting 2 CDAs. And we're not supposed to be having 2 CDAs on the same property.
But that has happened sometimes. Sometimes I notice that it thanks to Broker Sumo, sometimes it doesn't, and I have to do it manually. Why does that happen?
Because you need to make sure, and even it says that one part of the Broker Sumo, loops will be synced once you have added the close date, the sales price, commission information. Your name has to be matching with Broker Sumo. If you have 2 last names, or however is in Broker Sumo, I'm sorry, it needs to be on that loop.
So that part of that loop, when you do the loop, that when you add all the information,
yeah,
if you don't add it in there.
That's why when Pedro was saying that you need to make sure that you add all the information, so that way it can sync over to our Broker Sumo. So, because we don't have to then type and add a transaction, and it's double the work. If you see it, I mean, it's gonna go ahead, and if it syncs all the information, the only thing what you need to do is create a disbursement, because you need to edit the disbursement. You need to put, if you're gonna do a contribution, if you're gonna share a commission, or whatever you're gonna do, you're gonna be editing. I mean, we don't do that part because you know what you're gonna do with commission.
As long as you do the loop correctly at the beginning and you add everything you need, then
yeah, as long as you do your loop and you put the correct information that is required, it's gonna sync everything to broker Sumo. So everything is supposed to sync. You're not supposed to be adding another transaction, because then what happened is gonna be, we're gonna have two CDAs, one with 0%, which it was sync over, and the other one that you created manually. Okay? And that causes, we have to clean up the systems, and Melanie knows that we have been working on a list with so many CDAs that is 0%. And that's a headache. Yeah, it's very hard, because we have to go through and we have to make sure that, they did that transaction, that they close it, and then we have to delete it. Okay, do you have any questions? Feel free to ask.
Okay, let me see if I understand.
Okay, Nancy.
When I finish in that loop, and then
Okay.
click submit,
Mhm.
automatically it's going to create the file.
Automatically, in a couple of minutes, it's supposed, if the information is correctly, you have the closing date, you have your name is correct on both systems, it matches in both systems. Everything is supposed to sync over. If it's not syncing, something you're doing that it's not, something is missing. Yeah.
At what time the CDA is created? It's automatic.
Well, you have to create your CDA then. Once it's sync over, what it's gonna have is the information. When it syncs over from that loop, it's gonna have the basic information, the property address, the sales price of the property, if it's a listing, what percentage you're gonna get paid, that first page transaction information, that's what you're gonna have. Then you as an agent have to create the commission disbursement, because you have to edit your commission disbursement. I mean, if you're gonna be paying for the $395, or if your client, because sometimes when you create it, you're like, why there's two $395s? I don't know if some of you have noticed that there's two $395s. That means that you have to edit your disbursement, that you have to pick, okay, I'm gonna be paying for it, I'm gonna help my client, so I'm gonna erase the other one, paid by agent. Or if the client is gonna pay it, either or. And if you have a contribution to the buyer or seller, you can add it, edit everything. You can put everything you're gonna put on the CDA. Okay. Is there any other questions? Okay. So this one, the CDA will be approved if the file has been approved on that loop first. It's very important. We don't approve the CDAs before the file on that loop. Why is that? Because we need to know that all the required documentation is on compliance. Because I mean, they have sent me before like CDAs and they want me to approve the CDA, but I can't. We have to make sure that everything is on compliance to approve your CDA. Once your file on that loop is approved, we approve the CDA. And if there's a problem with the CDA, I will let you know, that I send you a message by that loop and okay, that you need to modify your CDA or whatever you need to do. And then I approve the CDA. You have a question?
Yeah.
Sí. Cuéntame.
So are you confused because broken sumo and that loop?
Uh-huh.
So what is the difference?
The difference is, okay, Oscar is asking what is the difference between that loop and broker sumo. Broker sumo is where you put all of your information to submit to our compliance department, and broker sumo is where you create your CDA to get paid, your commission. So there's two different platforms, but each one is different. But they sync together because, like I told you, you need to sync from that loop, all that information, sales price, the property address, and all of that. Okay? Okay. Perfect. So must provide the title company information. Yeah, very important. And that you provide the title company's information. We are the ones that submit the CDA to the title company, not the agent. So for our compliance department, you need to have the title company information, at least the email address, the contact information. You don't need to have the address. If you have everything, just put everything, but at least I'm gonna need the title company name, the contact person, and the email address, because I have to send them over the CDA. not the agent. Okay. So, so once the CDA is created, you see the 25%. That doesn't mean that I get a notification as compliance department that you created your CDA. You have to submit your CDA. And you're gonna ask me also, why do I get approved the CDA without submitting it to compliance? Because I usually, when I go to the dot loop and I approve your dot loop, I go to broker sumo directly and approve it. But there is a way to submit your CDAs. And I'm gonna show you real quick in broker sumo how to submit your CDA. Let me see. Yeah, I do it automatically. Unfortunately, it's supposed to be that way. Hold on, I'm getting technology, I'm sorry. Hold on, for some reason it's not. Hold on, okay. So we're gonna go to broker sumo. Let's say we're gonna pick out an address. Let me see if I have a 25% here. If not, okay, here we have one, 25%. Okay, once your CDA is created, everything is good to go. Okay, to submit it to our compliance department, you're gonna go to this little envelope right here. You're gonna click on this envelope. You're gonna select the broker. You're gonna select the first one, La Rosa Realty Lake Nona Compliance. Once you pick that, you're gonna send out an email. Then I'm gonna receive a notification that Patricia or Norma created her CDA and needs approval. So that's the way you send your CDA to get approval. Okay. I know some of you don't know this step because I usually do it automatically. I approve that file and I go ahead and go to broker sumo directly and I approve your CDA. Yes, but it's supposed to be that way. Because sometimes I return, like for example, I return your file for some reason because I need another document that needs to be added, and you add that file, okay, and I approved everything, but you need to, sometimes I approve that file and I let you know, hey, you need to create your CDA on broker sumo. And for some reason you created it and you think that I got the notification, and sometimes I don't get because you need to submit it for approval, okay? So, okay, let's go to, okay, and I put some, when I send you this, oh my God, when I send you this, this slideshow, it's gonna have the screenshot on how to do it, but there's also videos on my agent account. Yeah, so you can go ahead and follow. We're gonna be creating one in Spanish as well. Once we create those, we're gonna add it to my agent account, so that way you can have that as, you know, to follow up everything like a backup, yes. So we talked about this, about the leases when they're less than $2,000, that there will be the 5% the gross commission. So if that commission is more than $2,000, it's a $395 transaction fee. This is a regular transaction purchase and sale, the same thing. If it's less than $2,000, it's the same thing. And the commercial, you have to make sure to be part of the commercial department. If you're not part of the commercial department, you need to be paying them some fees to do a transaction with them. And you have to, the transaction fees are different with commercial. Commercial, we have, if the commission is $49.50 or less, it's a 10% plus the 30% you have to pay. So it's a little bit complicated, but when you go with them and you take the classes and you pay monthly, you know what you're going to be doing for that. So I talked about this. This is the approved CDA. So if the CDA has been approved well, no, actually, if the CDA has been approved and changes needs to be made, you have to email us and let us know, okay, I need to make changes to my CDA. So why is that? Okay, there was a price reduction. You need to submit an addendum to contract stating that there was a price reduction on that property.
But on the broker sumo?
No, on Dalu.
Because broker sumo is ready to close.
No, I know broker sumo is ready to close, but for example, if for any reason, you know, everything is approved and for some reason, the price of the property, it dropped. They did a price reduction. And you say, oh, I gotta change, I have to modify my broker sumo. It's not gonna let you because it's 50% when it's approved. I have to modify. You need to let me know. My CDA needs to be modified. For example, if it was a price reduction, you need to make sure you send the addendum to contract through .loop, or if the closing date or whatever, if any changes, submit it to the through .loop. I will approve it and I'll make the changes on it. Or if by any reason it's a builder and you didn't know that you were gonna get paid a bonus or whatever, oh, I need to add a bonus. So we can go ahead and modify your CDA. So that way you can get, you know, paid the correct amount. Okay, so I talked about this one too, transaction cancellation, that if the CDA has been approved and if the deal falls through, very important that you let us know. So that way we can go ahead and cancel that CDA and terminate that file on that loop. Okay, closing date. If the agent gets paid on the table, they need to make sure that the brokerage receives the transaction fee check. If not, it's their responsibility to pay the $395, unfortunately. So you gotta make sure that the title company send us that check. Because sometimes, you know, it has happened before that the client is going to be paying for the transaction fee, and for any reason, the lender doesn't include that on the closing, and it ends up that the agent needs to pay for it. So you need to make sure before closing that if your client is going to be paying for the $395, that's set. And then on the closing day, are you going to be mailing out the check to La Rosa? Okay, perfect. So that way we receive our check. If we don't receive that check per the policies and procedures, the agent is responsible for the $395 transaction fee. Okay. Okay, so if you have any questions, concern, if you want a copy of the slideshow, feel free to email me at compliance@larosa.leos. Okay, yes.
Sabes que someto el broker sumo, ¿verdad? Y te envío el mensaje para que apruebes el CD, ¿verdad? Ahí aparece 50%. La cambia de 25 a 50%.
From 25, it changes to 50%. That's the CDA, yes.
¿En qué momento, o sea, esa barra cambia un 100%?
Yeah. So once, what Andreina is asking if in broker sumo once it's 50%, if it changes to 100%. Yes, it changes to 100%, but that's the accounting department. They have to do a process, which, you know, I'm not very familiar with it, but they do a process to complete your file, to complete that broker sumo that the agent got paid, and it's gonna be showing 100%. So if you would like more information, like I told you, just email me at compliance@larosa.lakenona.com, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Sometimes, you know, it's very hard for me to take the calls because I have to be focused on approving the files. So, you know, sometimes the volume is really, you know, big, and I have to get concentrated, and sometimes I cannot get calls. So just email me, feel free to email me. Look, I have these questions, I have this concern, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Okay, and thank you for coming to the class.
Very good.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm gonna be answering your questions from the chat pretty soon. Hold on. Let me go ahead and. Yeah, so Judelka, let me go ahead and go to the top because we had a couple of questions. Okay, so they're saying hi, good morning, Diana. So yeah, this information is going to be emailed to you. Go ahead and email me at compliance@larosalaknona.com if you would like this slideshow so I can go ahead and send a copy to you. Thank you for being at the class today. And remember, if you want to do the class next month, the 22nd, okay, in Spanish. Okay, so bye everyone. Thank you for joining.